Huge burden eased for patients at POMGEN. Health workers conducting immunization attacked. And thieves vandalize vital runway instruments.
This is National MTV News with Helen Seah.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Tuesday's news. An oxygen generation plant is now operational at the Port Moresby General Hospital and will ease some of the oxygen burdens faced during the wave of COVID-19. Director of Medical Services, Dr. Kone Sobi, says the facility will produce 150 oxygen cylinders a day.
The container-based facility brings to the country's referral hospital a breath of fresh air, giving life to the sick. This includes admissions to the wards for severe COVID-19 infections.
As we have all seen in the recent pandemic, or in the current pandemic, and a number of surges we have had in the country and especially here in the city, the demand for oxygen has increased almost by 180%. I have just been informed this plant can generate about 150 cylinders, those G-size cylinders, in a day.
The oxygen generation plant was established to help cater for the current needs. It's a partnership in health that hopes to save more lives.
We normally use about 500 cylinders in 1 week in the entire hospital without COVID. But since the emergence and the surges we've had in COVID, especially this current surge, with the increasing number of patients requiring oxygen, our demand for oxygen has gone, initially started with 50 cylinders in a day, just for COVID alone, to almost 200 cylinders in 1 day. And that's just for COVID alone. So the demand has really gone up. And in the midst of all of this, we need to maintain essential care, other essential cares, not just COVID alone.
At Port Moresby General Hospital, more lives continue to be lost to this dreaded illness. In PNG, 370 people have already died from COVID-19.
We're now into the 7, probably 8 weeks of the surge. And so I think we have, and from the testing rates, positivity rates that we have had to date, we are saying that we perhaps have passed the middle of the surge period and we're heading downwards. But it's going to be a slow process going downwards because so many people have fallen sick. Many have died, unfortunately. But that is the situation, and so we are going to continue to support and plan to meet those demands.
The hospital director for medical services says there are plans in future to supply some of the oxygen to other facilities that need them. Bradley Valenaki, National MTV News.
Urban health centres in Lae were closed yesterday, leaving hundreds of patients unattended. This comes after health workers were attacked and verbally abused during mobile immunization clinics for babies who were mistaken for rolling out the COVID-19 vaccines. The clinics were opened today after a meeting between the health extension officers and the Morobe Provincial Health Authority.
The closure of all the urban clinics in Lae yesterday took patients by surprise as they turned up to lock gates and notices of closure. At the Malahang and Butibam clinics, notices were put up by the management telling people that the clinics would be closed for an indefinite period. Health workers we spoke to indicated that the sudden closure was due to an attack on a health team 2 weeks ago. The nurses were attacked during mobile immunization programs for babies. They were mistaken for rolling out COVID-19 vaccines. We were then referred to the Morobe Provincial Health Authority's Public Health Directorate for comments, who are in charge of all urban clinics. An attempt to get a response from the MPHA's acting public health director was unsuccessful. Yesterday, the HEOs of all the urban clinics in Lae met with MPHA representatives to discuss matters surrounding the closure of the clinics. While authorities are yet to comment on the sudden closure, what's certain is that the right to health care for ordinary people like this old lady was directly affected. Charlene Airy, National MTV News, Leh.
Meanwhile, all the urban clinics in Leh were open today after yesterday's briefing between the health extension officers and representatives from the Marbella Provincial Health Authority. Leh's Metropolitan Superintendent Chris Kunyanban is calling on the public to respect health workers carrying out their duties in the communities. This follows an incident last week Friday where health workers were attacked while conducting routine immunization in West Taraka. The police boss says the health workers provide vital services at this time and must be respected. Anyone found to harass or assault health workers will be dealt with.
Leh's Metropolitan Superintendent Chris Kunyanban said health workers need to be respected while carrying out their duties at this time. He made these comments when asked about the attack on district health workers, including staff of the St. John Ambulance on 2 separate occasions. Kunyanban said persons found to harass or assault health workers will be dealt with.
You don't need to be ambulance driver or health workman. Because now people put him heavy like skin blue. Said man, you make him. MU now want them low. But police for finding you, but they want them low. Whenever something you make him.
2 weeks ago, a team of health workers conducting routine immunizations in the West Taraka community were attacked by an individual. 2 of the mobilization workers were badly beaten.
People like supporting honest marine. Bottle stone.
The routine immunization that nurses are doing now. We are also being faced with the challenge of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Only being goal is like vaccination belong COVID-19. So you got misunderstanding.
Kunyanban confirmed that police were still looking for the suspect. He added that health workers, ambulance services and other service providers continue to work during this period and must be respected.
Where do you get those services? It is provided by the government. Now you bagaram big silo weekend. So in saying that side ambulance no health workers, you need to look at the two services. No can get misunderstanding and try to attack him all.
Lucy Kopana, National MTV News, Leh.
The Rumginai Rural Hospital in North Fly Western Province is in need of maintenance as the materials of the facility have deteriorated. The special care unit of the hospital was closed in September this year for renovation due to leakage in the roof. Some patients were advised to go home or were given open referrals to seek medical assistance at the district hospital in Kiunga. Currently, the Rumginai Rural Hospital has 5 bed spaces for inpatients and only 1 bed space for emergency cases. The hospital administration has noted this issue and engaged carpenters to do temporary repair work. Asipali Amono, the secretary for the Evangelical Church of Papua New Guinea Health Services in North Fly, says the building was established in the 1960s when missionaries arrived. For years, the hospital has been serving the rural villages in North Fly as well as other nearby areas.
The facility upgrade has been a concern. Currently, the facility is really deteriorated to a point where it's beyond repair, and work has been going on to get the facility redeveloped or upgraded. And with the upgrading of the School of Nursing, Rumginai Hospital also has to be taken into consideration in terms of redevelopment or giving it a facelift. So, because it has been a teaching facility for quite a while.
You're watching National EMTV News. We'll have more stories after these short messages. Stay with us. Welcome back. Environment and Climate Change Minister Wera Mori says the COP26 Leaders Summit must produce solutions and better outcomes. Prior to the official opening in Glasgow, Scotland, Mori said Papua New Guinea is among the many nations experiencing the disastrous effects of climate change. Minister Mori says world leaders must act now and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. He says enough talking has been done in previous summits.
The PNG government delegation led by Minister Mori are among the many countries attending the 26th Conference of Parties Leaders Summit in Scotland, a forum seen as the last frontier to tackle the rising global challenges of climate change. For PNG, the head of the envoy says enough talking has been done.
They've got to walk the talk. What's the point in coming here? Because we have already, I'm resolute. I will propose to the future that if there's any COP meeting where we're going to only come and talk and feel good about it, we might as well stay back in PNG.
The 2021 COP26 Leaders Summit officially opened yesterday. For the PNG envoy, Minister Mori will present agendas affecting our country and our plans to mitigate climate change effects. Mori is expected to elaborate on Prime Minister James Marape's statement delivered during the UN General Assembly in September. He says it will be a waste of time if nothing is achieved and if world leaders like US, China, Australia, Russia and UK differ from this dialogue.
The impact of climate change and fighting against global warming. These are the steps we have taken. We've got 30 steps that we need to take as a country by 2030. This is spelled out in our national determined contributions. And we have got a corporate plan which we are going to deposit shortly. That's basically going towards implementing our national determined contributions. That can only work. We will do our part as the victims, but those who are responsible for our predicaments must come now, and they've got to come.
Among the priorities during the summit is for PNG to discuss and access a funding of $100 billion per annum for climate change adaptation and mitigation. The PNG envoy has met with the head of Green Climate Change Fund Executive Director, Mr. Yannick Glemarek. The COP26 summit will end on 12th November. Jagla Pava Jr. National EMTV News.
And back home now, vaccination numbers are slowly creeping up with latest figures from the National Control Center for COVID-19 at more than 315,000 people vaccinated as of 1st of November. These vaccination figures are still low and the government is challenged to reach reasonable vaccination numbers for herd immunity.
Time and time again, the government keeps pushing for the public to get vaccinated for COVID-19, and the public is still slow to react to that call. The recent figures for vaccination across the country, including other important statistics on COVID-19 in the country, shows that PNG still has a low vaccination rate compared to other parts of the world. The statistics are as of the 1st of November and are from the National Control Center for COVID-19. Total cases are at 30,000 plus, active cases 2,098, deaths 385, recovered 27,552, people vaccinated 315,000 plus, total Delta cases 192. There are different reasons for making the choice not to get vaccinated, but there are some citizens that are peddling some very misleading information, which was highlighted by Governor of NCD, Powers Pakop.
Now we have a situation where the critics of the vaccine seems to be portraying a view that the vaccine is more dangerous than the virus. Like, what other nonsense there? How we have arrived at this type of, situation in our country?
Pakop says it's the virus that kills people and not the vaccine.
Very badly on us to come up with a type of proposition that the vaccine is more dangerous than the virus. Now, there might be the case that some people might die despite the fact that they got the vaccine, but when they die, They did not die because of the vaccine. They died because of the virus.
Member for Alotau Charles Abel also pointed out that it was important to get vaccinated.
I don't think it's something that we should dwell on too much anymore. We have to move on with life, and I think part of moving on with life is taking the necessary precautions to manage your health, and I think getting vaccinated is one of those requirements of getting on with life. Get the vaccination as you would receive any other vaccination that we get when we are children, against measles and smallpox and polio. Should be seen in a similar light.
The no jab, no job protests have been showing certain members of the public acting unorderly and in crowds against directives from the controller's office. But PACOP says it is for the well-being of all employees and businesses at large that employees must be vaccinated.
The employers have a responsibility to create a safe working place. We are legally required to create a safe working environment for the employees. So in the private sector and the government sector, they are getting the people to get the vaccine, or otherwise get tested every day before you go to workplace.
While unruly crowd behavior by protesters have surfaced on social media, the police hierarchy in the city have warned protesters of the reality that COVID-19 is causing.
Not local community, people, coronavirus in the gaman sick. I'm not good sick too. So see me talk. You like kisim suit or you like kisim suit and stop you yet. That's all. Wearing face mask around. Wearing face mask. Safety blue important. How sick now? How sick can pull up. More can pull up. Na true something will come up. So you must safety. Wearing face mask around. Look at you, mate. And appeal people leave me alone. But our police units are monitoring other parts of the city in case some German man like making them out. So they're monitoring. So far, the city is very quiet.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
And now looking at the NAS Fund market report, the Kina opened unchanged at $0.2850 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina is buying $0.2775, $0.3649 Australian dollars, $0.3831 New Zealand dollars, and 31.09 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading lower, coffee and copra closed higher, and cocoa closed lower. Crude oil is trading lower, palm oil and copper closed lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed higher, the ASX 200 is trading higher, and the All Ordinaries is trading higher. You're watching National EMTV News. We'll have more stories after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. He lived a colourful life and was finally laid to rest at his village Lehinga in Maprik district of East Sepik province. Former politician and senior statesman Sir Peter Lus was born in 1936 and passed on in 2021.
People all members.
He was a straight shooter, that man from the East. Never minced his words. Once described by Sir John Caputin as a vicious and loose cannon, but behind his facade there was a very serious mind concerned with real issues, expressed in pidgin with lots of humour and punctuated with colourful phrases in English. Sir Peter Lus lived a colourful life, having lived through 3 stages of Papua New Guinea's existence as a country. A free life without colonial rule to witnessing colonialism and the transition to independence. He played his part, and one could say understanding the freedom before colonial rule was the driving factor in pushing for independence. Born in 1936, Sir Peter passed on last month at the age of 85. As his beloved Papua New Guinea focused on the 3rd wave of COVID-19, this founding father was quietly brought home after given the honours of a state funeral in Port Moresby. Welcomed by his people of Maprik and laid to rest yesterday at his Lehinga village. His eulogy told of a brave man who travelled the tough terrains of the New Guinea Islands and Momase during the formative years. A man of God who feared no one, even standing against colonial rule at a young age. While he will be missed, his legacy lives on as the man who convinced the Grand Chief to join politics and eventually becoming the first Prime Minister of the independent state of Papua New Guinea. Sir Peter joined politics in 1964 and was among the first Papua New Guineans to be knighted in 1978.
Chamin Porayambab, National EMTV News.
The Department of Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs has denied citing the published gazettal notice of the appointment and termination of the chairman and members of the Juha Special Purpose Authority. Acting Secretary Joe Warros confirmed that the notice is not from the department. Warros said the department had submitted a brief to the Office of Minister Pila Ningi to rescind a decision and recognize the leadership of incumbent board members following a national court order. The acting secretary made this statement following a meeting with frustrated board members at Kitpeng building recently. Meanwhile, incumbent Juha chairman Peter Andama says the appointment of Ben Heroa is an abusive process because he has not received a letter of termination. Andama also stated that Heroa was arrested and charged by police and is under investigation by the Fraud Directorate. Mopo Primary School in remote Usino Bundi district of Medang has received a funding of 150,000 kina by Medang provincial government. The funding was recently presented by Governor Peter Yama to the headmaster, board chairman and Ward 19 and 20 councillors. This funding is purposely to build a double classroom for this remote school. Governor Yama hopes this funding will boost the school's current facilities and improve student learning. Mopo Primary School is one of the most remote schools in the Usino local level government of Medang province.
Promise Lomi long Mopo School. It's at a time long COVID-19. I had lots of money, plenty of money, but promise Lomi me looking was in which obligation is a Longaria area, no development. School and on the back page. Na run down. Na mi sole. But me suppose me no admin bla how by me except by me get. Or tell me started 2000 losing on the headmaster, on the view, on the chairman, na council, to the council staff lawyer, na leader man, a peace officer. But you play on we work good now.
Shuka Sports is next. All the details after the break.
Shuka Sports.
Welcome to Shuka Sports. SPPNG Hunters have announced the appointment of Digital Cup Premiership winning coach Stanley Tappend as assistant coach for the 2022 Intra Super Cup season.
Snacks Tigers coach Stanley Tappend has welcomed the decision to join the SP Hunters coaching staff. Tappend, alongside former Kumul Paul Aiton, will assist coach Matthew Church in the 2022 Intra Super Cup season. The Digital Cup Premiership winning coach brings with him a wealth of experience. In his 9 years of coaching, Tappend has led the Snacks Tigers to 4 Premiership titles and 6 minor premierships. This year, the Tigers coach had a sensational season, guiding the Lay Biscuit-sponsored side to a grand final victory against the Wagi Tumbes in the Intercity Cup. Tappend's coaching record in PNG is unmatched, with most capped premiership titles. He is also the current assistant coach for the PNG LNG Kumuls. His experience in the coaching arena is a bonus to the SP Hunters. He will join coach Matthew Church during the pre-season training in Port Moresby later this month. Suli Trukai Sports.
And that ends Shuka Sports. The weather report is next, and after the break we'll also bring you vandalism at Boram Airport. Details after the break.
True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
I'll look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Partly cloudy with possible brief showers and inland thunderstorms in Port Moresby. Cloudy periods with brief squally showers possible in Daru, Kerma and Popondetta, and mostly fine weather in Alotau. In the Mombasa region, partly cloudy with brief showers in Leh and Vanimo. Partly cloudy in Midang and mostly fine, although partly cloudy at times in Wewak. In the New Guinea Islands region, brief showers possible in Lorengau and Buka. Partly cloudy with brief showers possible in Kavieng. Mostly fine, although partly cloudy in Kokopo and Rabaul, and partly cloudy with a few showers in Kimbe. And in the Highlands region, partly cloudy with a few showers and possible thunderstorms in Mount Hagen, Mendi and Wabeg, and partly cloudy with brief showers in Goroka and Kundiawa. Forecast for small crafts for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru and to Kiwai Islands to Kerama and Yule Island to Hood Point to Samari Islands. Seas of 1 to 2.0 meters. Waters of Samari Islands to Cape Fogle and eastern and western Milne Bay Islands. Seas of 1.5 to 2 meters. Waters north of Cape Fogle through Huon Gulf and Finschhafen, including waters north of Long Island to Medang to Wewak to Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border, seas of 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Finschhafen through Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to CRC and Long Island, seas of 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas of 0.5 to 1 meter. And waters of New Ireland to New Britain and Bougainville, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. A look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. In the Coral Sea, seas rough to patches very rough with southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas moderate with southeast winds at 15 to 20 knots. In the Bismarck Sea, seas slight to moderate with southeast winds at 10 to 20 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas smooth with southeast winds at 5 to 10 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
Before we go, Air New Guinea's resumption of the forecast service into Boram Airport, Wewak, has been further delayed after newly installed precision approach path indicator lights or puppy lights were vandalized on Sunday morning. While passengers booked for the Fokker 100 flight on Sunday were left stranded and frustrated, the National Airports Corporation is now footing the extra cost and condemning the act.
Passengers booked on Air New Guinea's Fokker 100 service to Boram Airport in Wewak, East Sepik Province on Sunday were left stranded when the service was downgraded to a Link PNG service. The same for passengers intending to travel to Port Moresby from Boram. This is because on the early hours of Sunday morning, Thieves vandalized one of the precision approach path indicator lights or puppy lights. The National Airport Corporation strongly condemns the action, saying the puppy lights are a set of visual aid that provides guidance information that help a pilot to acquire and maintain a correct approach to an airport or aerodrome. The thieves forced one of the panels open and disconnected the power control unit. The focus service flights are further delayed until the lights are restored. Suspects are still at large as police in East Sepik continue to investigate. Shamit Poriambeb, National EMTV News.
The government has been urged by the Parliamentary Committee on Gender-Based Violence to ensure that the upcoming budget session starting on November 16th will be used to allocate proper funding to implement the national GBV strategy and resourcing of activities across the country.
The Parliamentary Committee on Gender-Based Violence yesterday met with the media with only 2 members of the committee present. The committee reminded the national government that the budget allocation for GBV programs must be a priority in this month's budget sitting. The Department for Community Development and Religion has made a major funding bid of 35 million kina over 5 years, which it wants to use to set up the National GBV Secretariat and to make sure GBV crisis response and prevention activities can be properly rolled out across the country.
So we are here to humbly continue to remind the government that it is very important as part of this process to activate the Gender-Based Violence Secretariat in the Department of Community Affairs to continue to support the prosecution process with the Police Department and the Office of the Public Prosecutor and other elements of the process like counselling or safe houses or supporting the provincial-based initiatives. Funding is always a critical element.
Committee member Powes Pakop also put the Treasury Department on notice and demanded that the budget include proper funding for GBV work.
And so we need this funding and we need the Secretariat to be up and running so it can coordinate all the national action, provincial, local action. That's most vital and important. So as Secretariat, we must make sure, and this is why I'm happy Chairman has called this meeting so that we are now putting, Treasurer, Minister for Finance and Minister for Planning on notice. They are framing the budget.
The media conference was used to announce the launch of a second round of public hearings by the committee, which will be held in Port Moresby starting 29th November.
Through the mechanism of having parliamentary inquiries, for example, and summoning the relevant people in, conducting inquiry and then producing a report that goes to Parliament that makes recommendations and then following up those recommendations as long as the committee is still alive in the current term of Parliament.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
And that's been the news, sport and weather for today, Tuesday, 2nd November 2021. Until next time, pleasant viewing. Be safe and good night.